Hello, Mrs. B and my fellow classmates. My name is Hudson McNerney, and I am here to tell you about someone who I really admire. So I found out about this person a few years back when I was doing a research project for my English class, actually back in high school. And I found this person, and I was amazed. I was blown away, and I was also amazed because nobody really knows about him, and nobody really knows his story. And I'll tell you about that later and why that is. So though some may not admit it, everybody likes to root for the underdog, and I can think of no greater underdog than William Marshall. Who was William Marshall, you ask? William Marshall, where you'd know him from, he's the man who made the Magna Carta possible. Um, and this person rose so far above his ranks and grew into such a needed person in history. It's crazy. So he was born to as a lowly son to a minor nobleman with no land and no money and he became the right hand man to five of the most famous English kings during the Middle Ages. So around the age of 8, he was thrown into the political field when he was captured by King Stephen because William's father was trying to overthrow King Stephen, and during that time, King Stephen had a lot of problems going on in his lands that a lot of people didn't like. So he was captured by King Stephen, and that's because King Stephen took William's father's land, and then his son was on his land, so he took his land and his son, and he actually placed William in a catapult and threatened to kill William. And instead of his father trying to save William, William's father said, "Go ahead and kill him because I can, quote unquote, make more sons." So the king ended up he ended up not killing William, and he ended up taking William under his wing for many months until he returned William to his father. Um, so he was sent off to live in Normandy with his mother's cousin after that because everything had been blown way out of proportion. And there he was trained to become a knight. He learned Latin and he learned how to fight and all of the knightly things. And he gained quite a bit of fame by becoming a major tournament champion winner all across Europe. He gained his knighthood and he traveled Europe, won tournaments all over the place. It is said that he has bested over 500 men in hand to hand combat throughout the tournament years. He was absolutely brilliant. And the way that these tournaments worked was it wasn't like a joust competition like you see in the movies. It was actually a gigantic plot of land that was miles and miles and acres, and they would have all of these knights just basically fight, not to the death, but even though some people died sometimes, it was more of a you would die, and he won a lot of those. Oh, I went too far. So, he won all these tournaments, and he was starting to be very, very widely known around Europe. And that actually caught the eye of King Henry II of England. And the king offered him a position to teach his son how to fight and to teach him how to basically knightly things. So William took young Henry under his wing, and young Henry eventually became the young King Henry. And after years of friendship, William was accused of having an affair with the young King Henry's wife. And basically, the young King Henry, even though it wasn't definitive and nobody really knew what actually happened, he basically threw him off of his court. And months later, the young King Henry actually reinstated him into his court because there was a war between Richard the Lionheart and the young King Henry. This is actually a picture of young King Henry's court. This was painted back during that time. Yeah. So sadly, the young King Henry died very young. That's why he's called the young King Henry. And on his deathbed, um, William vowed that he would go to the Crusades and fight for the young King Henry, vowing that he would do so because he died. He fought, and little is very known about his time during the Crusades. So I'm not going to go very much into that, but I know that it affected him very much in his later years. So after returning, William is said to have fought and almost killed Richard the Lionheart during another war. And Richard the Lionheart is known for being a very strong person who nobody had bested him until then, until that point. So during William's later years, he did lots of things. Though he had some serious moral disagreements with Richard the Lionheart and King John, he served under them during their reign as kings. Um, Despite being over 70 years old, he actually led the charge at the Battle of Lincoln in 1217. And he was the main signee to the Magna Carta, which gave rights to barons whose rights were taken away from them by King John. So he died, and he was buried in the heart of London because he vowed that he would be buried there with his team that he fought with in the Crusades. I look up to this person because he's pictured as a very moralistic human being throughout his lifetime, and that is someone who that is something that I look up to personally. He is also looked upon as the glue that held England together during these five kings, and I personally would like to be like him. Thank you.